everyone! Today I wanted to talk about why I love secondhand dolls, what they mean to me in terms of my doll collection, and how they've changed how I view dolls and how I collect dolls. So let's get right to it. I love buying dolls from everywhere, whether it's the store or online like places like eBay or at the flea market, but I will say that buying them secondhand is probably my favorite place to get dolls. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, which I'm going to share with you. Secondhand dolls have always been part of my life. My very first Barbies were actually secondhand from the Salvation Army. My grandparents used to work there, and one day they brought home a big bag of dolls that they had gotten while they were working, and it was filled with a bunch of really junky late 80s, early 90s Barbies, and at that point it was only like 1993, so the dolls really weren't very old and they were really trashed. So my sister got to pick her dolls first, and she left the half-bald Ice Capades Barbie for me and the Ken. And of course we didn't know who any of them were back then, and none of them had their outfits, but a very, very, very vague memory of going through the bag and seeing the dolls and feeling like this overwhelming sense of happiness and feeling like these dolls were so magical. And I was only 2 at the time. Ever since then, I've just been obsessed with dolls. Secondhand collecting never really turned me off. I know for some people they don't really like having previously owned items, or maybe they like their dolls all to look a certain way and to be really complete, but I guess for me, since my very first experience with dolls was like literally getting one that was half bald and, you know, naked, I never really thought anything of it. And I actually have a whole like story about my first dolls on my Flickr account in my experiences and inspiration album if you want to know like kind of more of the details and who the dolls were, and I'll insert a picture of them here. Way back in time, well before I can even remember, my family was always secondhand shopping. Growing up, my parents didn't have like tons of extra income, so to save money, we had a lot of secondhand clothes and secondhand furniture and, you know, things along those lines. And plus, my mom loved collecting little knickknacks that were secondhand, and my dad loved collecting like old toy trucks. So it was sort of like a family tradition that got passed down to me and my sister. And the flea market that we actually go to now every Sunday was the one that we started going to when I was super, super little, and my sister still remembers this, but my parents used to pull us around in a wagon, I guess, when we were really, really little kids. And that's how long I've been going there. And I'm 25 now, and we still go there, and it's still an amazing flea market. And tons of my first Barbies were from that flea market, and a lot of the dolls that I get now are still from there. A part of me my whole life, and even when I wasn't collecting dolls, secondhand shopping was still something that my dad, me, and my sister loved doing. I think for me, one of the biggest appeals is that when you go secondhand shopping, you just never know what you're gonna find. It's like an adventure every time, and that's why I like to call a lot of my hauls like treasure hunts, because that's what it feels like. I mean, you can find some really cool things in stores, but it's not that same like randomness. You just never know how the age of the dolls you're gonna find, or you know what condition they're gonna be in, or what types of dolls you're gonna find. There's just so much adventure, and sometimes I'll find things that I never really thought I'd like, and I'll fall in love with them. Case in point with Nellie, I got her at the flea market in 2014 for $25, and I had never really seriously thought about getting a Nellie doll, but the second I saw her in person, even though she was completely grotesque looking at the time, I fell in love, and I just had to have her, and that moment like made me fall in love with her. It's just this cool random twist of fate of what you're gonna find and who it's gonna be and the condition, and there are all kinds of things that surprise me, and I'm always surprised. I'm still surprised, even though I've been going to flea markets and buying dolls for like 20 years of my life. I still feel that same sense of thrill and adventure. I also really love restoring things and making old things beautiful, and that's what secondhand doll collecting is all about. I mean, there are really nice looking dolls that you can find secondhand, or ones that are boxed, but I still like to fix them up. I even fix up my store-bought dolls, but getting like a really like haggard looking doll and making them look beautiful and giving them like a new life is such a powerful feeling, and that's what the story was with Nellie. I don't have a lot of pictures of her on my Flickr account of what she looked like before, because that was before I actually like had an official Flickr account. I was just stockpiling photos for it at the time. But she basically had like Sharpie eyeliner on, and her bangs were cut, they still are, and she was loose and filthy, and she was wearing the wrong outfit. So I had to go to great lengths to fix her up, and I love that. I love seeing how things transform, and I'm just the sort of person where I'm all about like recycling things and like using what you already have and making it into something different and something you can use. That's just sort of the person I am. I'm not all about like going out and buying brand new stuff all the time. I like to repurpose things, and that's sort of what secondhand collecting is all about, because you know, you take dolls that a lot of people might think are junk or that someone cast out because they're not nice. Like one of my 2011 Disney Store Rapunzel dolls actually got kicked out of her old home because her hair was messy, and the girl's father didn't feel like dealing with it. But I was able to fix that doll up and make her look like she did when she came out of the box for the most part, except she had lost a lot of hair. But I think that that's what's so much fun. And you know, there's so many dolls that you think aren't going to be able to be saved, or you think, you know, might need to be thrown out or don't have any life left in them, and they do, and they turn out beautiful, or you at least improve them greatly. Like Nellie will never be perfect, but you know, she looks so much better, and you definitely would never know that she looked as bad as she did when I got her. You know, no matter how many times I get a secondhand doll, and no matter how many awful circumstances I've seen, I've never seen it all. There's always something, you know, that shocks me, and even if it's a really generic transformation, like a quick boil wash or something, it's still like shocks me to see how nice the dolls look. And you know, I like looking through like my Dolly Transformations album and seeing like what some of my dolls looked like before, and then seeing how nice they look now. It's fun to see them go from like to wow. I feel like not only do I really like making old things new again because I like recycling, but also it's the sort of like artistic person that I am. It's taken me a really long time to figure this out about myself, but the past like year and a half, 2 years, I've learned that I'm the sort of person that the sort of things that I like to create are like based off of already existing things. Like I'm not the kind of person that I will just like think of a cartoon character in my head and draw it, or come up with like some crazy story about completely made up people. I was always the person that took inspiration from already existing things, and that's what I love about secondhand dolls, is like, and just dolls in general, is that they inspire me, and they inspire me to create hair pieces for them, or jewelry for them, or stands for them, and you know, pick out really cool outfits that fit them, especially with secondhand dolls, because there's so much work that goes into making them look decent and beautiful again. I really get to get my hands in and get creative, and it's so much fun to see like what kinds of things I can create based on, you know, the dolls that I find. I also really love the mystery behind secondhand dolls. I feel like a detective trying to solve the puzzle. Especially when I was younger, I knew that the dolls that I had that were secondhand once upon a time been nice dolls that came from stores, and I wanted to know who they were and how old they were and what they came with, and did I have their clothes. And I was so curious to know what their markings meant, and I can remember asking my mom, like, what do the dates mean on these dolls? And I feel like that's part of why I'm so like intensely involved in identification, because like I don't have the intent when I collect dolls that they're all gonna be perfect and they're all gonna have their outfits. That's like not my end goal. I mean, it'd be cool, but I don't really have like that intent or like expectation. I just really like knowing and like having that information, because it was something that I wanted as a kid. And when I was younger, we didn't have the internet at home, and I didn't have doll books, and the only way that I could really identify people was through, you know, those little pamphlets we'd get with box dolls, or you know, from information I got from other people, or if I saw dolls in boxes. And I would basically make comparisons between dolls at a really young age. Like with 80s Barbies, I noticed that my day-to-night Barbie named Cheryl, I noticed that she had a lot in common with my 1976 Superstar Barbie who I had gotten boxed. And that's sort of what triggered my love for 80s Barbies, was because I started kind of collecting dolls that looked like that, and then when I grew up and I actually knew who they were, I realized they were all from like the 80s, and I thought that that was super cool that I had unintentionally like created this collection when I didn't know anything about the dolls or who they were, and I could just tell from looking at the clothes, even though they were so different from what I grew up with, like these are special, these are old. That's why I've gotten pretty good at identifying dolls, is because I want to know. And I know like a lot of people like to post their stuff and, you know, just have other people identify it for them, but for me, like, I'm all about the thrill. Like, nothing makes me happier than sitting on eBay for hours at a time and scrolling through listings and identifying fragments of clothes and finding out who the dolls are. And once I solve the mystery, I can figure out, like, do I have their clothes and piece them together. And even if I don't have their clothes in that time, it is really cool to be able to find their clothes later on, whether I buy them like on purpose or whether they come on another doll I bought or in a lot. It's just so much fun to, you know, take dolls and piece them together. And my 80s Barbies collection is really good, like, example of this, because most of them didn't come with their outfits, but a lot of them, like a vast majority of them, have their outfits, and that's because every time I see clothes for 80s Barbies, I just like want to hoard them. Even if I don't have a doll that needs that outfit and I already have 6 in storage, I will want that outfit. I just feel very passionately about mating dolls together, and, you know, sometimes I can find like clothes on eBay that I need, but it's so cool when I'm like just buying stuff at the flea market, not really knowing everything that I'm buying, and then I find like a ton of clothing pieces that I need. And if you watch some of my transformation videos, a lot of times, like, me and my sister will mention that, oh, we got this outfit and it goes to one of our old dolls. So it's cool because it's like this never-ending cycle of like getting stuff for your dolls, and like even if they're a doll that I've had 3 years, I could get them an outfit, and it's just like a whole chance to, like, you know, take them out and, you know, wash them up again and get them in this new outfit. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed like figuring out who my childhood dolls were. And even though, like, as a kid I probably thought that they were a lot more exotic than what they turned out to be, which was, you know, like pretty standard late 80s, early 90s Barbies, it was still so cool to like know, like, Christina is actually Ice Capade's Barbie, and Frostin' is actually Hawaiian Fun Barbie, and to just know like what they were supposed to look like. And then at the same time it kind of made me sad, like, oh my gosh, they looked that bad when we got them and they were only that old. Like, the last major point is that I love the stories behind secondhand dolls. I mean, every doll has a story. Secondhand dolls especially. I have this quote that I read in my all my Barbie books video at the very beginning, and it's about like how dolls embody like who owned them or who made them, and they kind of almost have like this like soul attached to them. And especially secondhand dolls, because they've already been like taken out and played with, and I'm always curious to know who owned them and why they're at the flea market and were they loved. And sometimes you can tell just from looking at a doll that they were really loved. Like my American Girl Caroline, you know, her hair was easy to comb through, but she was missing a lot, which said that she had been combed a lot, and, you know, her clothes were kind of dirty, but they were all there, which meant someone had, you know, made an effort to keep all of her stuff together. Whereas you have a doll like Nellie who was like completely trashed and, you know, was just like randomly given to some flea market seller and sold for like 25 bucks in awful condition. And there's just a certain appeal in knowing that like something I own already had like a life attached to it. And I mean, that can be said of a lot of things. I really like that about everything. Like, even if it's something like a piece of furniture, it's just cool thinking of like the story behind something and what it could be, and even if it's like you're making up a story behind it. I really love knowing that when I get a doll, that even if they were loved or abused, that they now have a home where they're going to be loved and respected. And it makes me sad when I see dolls like Nellie who weren't loved in a long time and hadn't been taken good care of, but it makes me happy knowing that I was able to give her a new home and a new family. And, you know, she's one of my favorite American Girl dolls. I really connect with this doll. She got me back into American Girls. And the same can be said of a lot of my dolls, and a lot of the dolls that I personally really connect with are ones that someone else never really connected with and never really cared about, might not have even really played with them, or they made a point of abusing them because they thought it was fun. I like to collect lots of dolls like people's entire collections basically. It's really interesting to see like the patterns of what those people enjoyed to collect. Some people liked to have a lot of Barbie's friends, a lot of Teresa's, a lot of Ken's, or maybe they liked Skipper. Or it's just so cool to see what someone else really enjoyed and how much they collected it. And that's what makes the dolls special to me, is, you know, the stories behind them and the emotion put into them and the time and love I put into them. And, you know, most of the time it's the secondhand dolls that, you know, need the extra attention and need the extra love because they looked so bad before, or they were so neglected and abandoned. I really can't imagine not collecting secondhand dolls. It's been a part of my life. It's been all I've really known. I can't really imagine a different way of collecting for myself, because that's what I've done. And it's kind of this like almost like sacred tradition that has just been in my family for a long time. And, you know, we kept doing it after my mom passed away, and, you know, me, my dad, and my sister would go. And then when my dad passed away, me and my sister decided that we were still going to keep going and still keep the tradition alive. And in a way it kind of feels like we're doing it with my parents still, that we kind of do it like in their memory. And even though I know, you know, my dad's not like physically there anymore, it's still fun to like, oh, he would have thought this was so cool, or oh, he would have wanted this, or, you know, that kind of thing. I think that's what makes it so special. And I have gotten like a few people asking if I'll do like follow me around the flea market kind of videos, and there's a few reasons why I won't be doing those. One, I'm really awkward and I can't ever imagine myself pulling a camera out in public and filming. I'm just way too awkward and self-conscious. And also for safety and privacy reasons, because it's like a local flea market and I, you know, need to be careful about that. And the main reason is actually because it is really sacred to me, and I love sharing like personal things with you guys, but there are some things that like are very private and I do just for me and just for my sister, and, you know, it's just this really special thing, and I wouldn't ever want to like take that away from myself or compromise that by like, you know, making it into a video and, you know, not being fully immersed in the moment because I'm worrying about like the footage and the camera. So I hope you guys understand, and, you know, it's nothing personal, and I understand that a lot of people do that, but for me it's a really very sentimental, and I wouldn't want to compromise that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sure that a lot of you who love secondhand doll collecting can relate to a lot of why I love them. And if you haven't tried buying secondhand dolls, I really recommend it. It's definitely a unique experience and a lot of fun. And until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.